Alona. I'm one of the part of ACI head office team, and I will be your host today. I want to warmly welcome everyone to our program, The Modern Bodhisattva, coming to you live from Diamond Mountain. And please join me in welcoming Geshe Michael Roach.
Okay, you ready? Am I ready? Mr. Tim? Okay, hi, good morning. Welcome to Diamond Mountain and welcome to Long. So we had a busy trip to Kyoto, right? And then Shanghai and got back last night. No, feels like that. So I was thinking about what to teach this morning. We'll be going through the Lamrim. We've been doing it about 13 or 14 years. So my teacher taught me the steps to the path for 3 times through the book, which took 30 years. And so I was trying to do it once with you guys. And we're doing really well. I think we have maybe a few months to go. And the theory before I started this Lamrim was that all the Lamrims end in the last 2 perfections, meditation and emptiness. And when I taught this Lamrim, I decided to do the meditation and emptiness first. So we went to the end of the book when we started, and I taught meditation and emptiness. And then we started from the beginning of the book. And we're almost reached the part that we started with. And so we're finishing the book. But I promised to do one more meditation and emptiness section from another Lamrim. And I was thinking the Lamrim Chenmo of Tsongkhapa, which is the great Lamrim. And it's 1,000 pages. He spends 500 pages on emptiness and meditation, which is why Pabonka Rinpoche did not spend many pages on it, because he said, what's the use, you know? And then I've been working on the mixed nuts books. We just finished the 11th one last night. And there's a book I started about 9 years ago called Gompa Rapsel, which is the true intent or something like that of the Buddha. And it's Tsongkhapa's greatest work on emptiness. It will be about 1,500 pages in English, I think. So I started it and I never had time to finish it because I'm too busy. I'm about halfway through, so I thought I would pause working on the mixed nuts books. I'll still do the translation classes, but I thought I would pause it for about 6 months. Usually I work all day on their books, and I would like to finish the Gompa Rapsel, which is the greatest book ever written on emptiness. And then I thought it would be fun to teach that instead of the Lamrim Tamil emptiness, because it's actually deeper. It's much deeper about emptiness, and no one's really translated it yet, and I don't think anybody will or can. So anyway, I'm thinking about that.
It's always a challenge from Diamond Mountain. It is a desert. And I know from my colleagues that yesterday they have a lot of internet connection drops. So let's just be patient and wait for team on site to fix this. Thank you.
He lived in India 1,000 years ago. He was attending a monastery named Vikramashila, and Vikrama means damn good. Shila means morality. Probably they wouldn't say that if they had good morality, but it's the name of the monastery. That and Nalanda are the two great Buddhist monasteries in ancient India. So he was a master there, and people would go to Vajrasana. Vajra means diamond, asana means seat, like under your as. That's really where the word comes from. So anyway, Vajrasana means seat of the diamond, and it's the old name for Bodh Gaya, which is where Lord Buddha was enlightened. And in fact, the first time we finished the Dhammapada Sutra translation into English, the first time I ever taught it was sitting under the Bodhi tree at Bodh Gaya, and it was awesome. That was 100 years ago, right? And anyway, so people used to go there and walk around the stupa for good luck. And so Atisha went there. $100 if you can tell me the Tibetan for Atisha. Yeah, Punso. So Haggerty, pay Haggerty $100. Left hand to right hand. Yeah, he's got it ready. Yeah, Punso. So Atisha means perfectly good person, perfect Atisha. So anyway, he was walking around the stupa at Bodh Gaya, and they say he looked up in the sky and there were two ladies talking. And one was younger, one was older. And one lady, I don't know, he doesn't seem like he was too worried that they were sitting in the sky. He's like, oh, And the one lady said to the other lady, if you wanted to get enlightened really fast, what would be the best way? And the other lady said, Sem Jong, Sem Jong. Say Sem Jong. Okay, you gotta say twice, Sem Jong. Yeah. And then that's all. Then they like disappeared, and Atisha's like Sem Jong, Sem Jong. Sem means mind. Jong means to practice something until you're good at it, okay? It also means to purify something or to clean something. So Sem Jong means that, and they repeated it twice. And then he said, well, I got to find out how to Sem Jong, So he asked around, who knows about Sem Jong? And somebody said, oh, there's a great master named Dharmakirti. So Dharmakirti already dead for 300 years, And Atisha said, well, he's been passed away. I'll slow down, translate. I can already see your stress. Dharmakirti lived about 350 years before Atisha, and he's the great logician, and you don't want to meet him because it's very difficult. In fact, I moved one of the translation classes out of this week so you wouldn't have a breakdown. And so we're going to do Vinaya instead, morality, okay? But anyway, so they said, no, that's not that Dharmakirti. There's two Dharmakirtis. And he said, well, who's the second Dharmakirti? And they said, oh, he's living in Indonesia. You know, he's a great master in Indonesia. And this is called Sumatra, right? An island in Indonesia. I think there's over 1,000 islands in Indonesia. One is called Sumatra. To get to Sumatra in the old days, 1,000 years ago, Chinese masters used to leave from what's now Guangzhou. They used to leave from the port there in Guangzhou, and then they would sail to Sumatra and study there. And there was 1,000 monks there at a place called Palombar or something. And so if you wanted to go to India to study, because people were inspired by a monk called Shensang, 400 years before that, he went to India. He walked to India, across the Gobi Desert, and then down through Afghanistan, walked through India 17 years. And he learned Buddhism. And then he became a great debater. He beat a huge bunch of Indian monks at Nalanda Monastery. Then he came home with 1,000 Buddhist books to Xi'an, which was then called Chang'an. And there was a tower there that Tang Taizong, the emperor of Tang Dynasty, gave him a tower. I get stuck with this 2-story building. Shenzhen had a tower, like 15 stories. I went there. But anyway, so he basically helped start Chinese Buddhism as we know it now, with 1,000 different translations from his team. And then about 350 years later, monks were going from China to Indonesia and studying there. And then they would learn Sanskrit roughly, and then they would take the sea journey around Indonesia, Vietnam, all the way to Burma, to Bengal. And then they would walk to Nalanda Monastery. And that's where the real study was going on. But they had to kind of prepare in Indonesia first. So anyway, there were some great monks teaching in Indonesia. One of them was named Dharmakirti. Sometimes Indonesia or Sumatra was called the island of the gold, Suvarna, Dvipa, say Suvarna, Dvipa. Suvarna means good color. Varna came into English varnish, which means the paint on a table or something. Suvarna means good color, golden. And Dvipa, Pa means water. And Dvipa means split the water, which is what an island does. So Dvipa means island. So Suvarna Dvipa is the Lama from the Golden Island. And people told Atisha, if you want to learn Semjong, if you want to learn the mind, to purify the mind, study the mind, you got to go to Indonesia. So he took off on a boat, 13 months at sea. And I found out later he had 125 students with him. Like to take 2 students is a pain in the butt. And I don't know how he survived with 125. And when Atisha later went to Tibet, he only took 1 or 2 students with him. Probably he learned. But anyway, there's a beautiful story. And he got to into Sumatra, and he met Suvarna Dvipa Guru, the teacher from the Golden Island. And he said, will you teach me Semjong, will you teach me? By the way, which means bodhicitta, which we can say compassion, okay? And the teacher said, yeah, I can teach you, but it takes a while. Okay, are you ready to commit? And he said, well, how long is a while? And he said, 12 years, you know. And Atisha said, that's fine, I'll do it. And he stayed in Indonesia for 12 years. And he studied Semjong, okay? And then when he got back to India, he had three great teachers. He had 157 gurus, three greatest ones. And one of the other ones was named Maitri Yogi, okay? Say Maitri Yogi. He was a great master of Lojong. So all three were great masters of Lojong. And Maitri Yogi's famous story is that he was giving a public lecture in a town square in India. I think he was standing on a soapbox. This is an American thing. You stand on a wooden box to talk to a group of people in the old days. And somebody in the back was hassling with a dog. If you've ever lived in India, there's dogs, wild dogs running around everywhere. And the dog sniffed at the man, and the man took a stick and whacked him 3 times. And then Maitri Yogi, Atisha's second teacher, he goes, ah, 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 like he could feel the stick, you know. And then the guy's like, ah, come on, you know, you're just pretending you can feel the dog's pain, you know. And Maitri Yogi says, oh yeah? And he turns around and he lifts up his robes, and you can see his bottom. And there's 3 red welts across his butt, you know. And he says, see? The guy's like, okay, I believe you. So that's his story. He taught Lojong to Atisha, two people. Then he had a third teacher in India named Dharma Rakshita. Say Dharma Rakshita. And he was a great master of Lojong also. And he saw that he started teaching Atisha Abhidharma, okay? And at the time there was the great exposition of Abhidharma. So Abhidharma was popular after Buddha for about 700 years. The Abhidharma guys took over Buddhism, and they were amazingly dull and boring, okay? And I know I studied Abhidharma that's the first thing I studied with my teacher. Usually in the Geshe course you study it last, but my teacher was teaching it to somebody, so I did 12 years of Abhidharma with my teacher, and it's very dull and very boring. So anyway, they kind of took over Buddhism for 700 years, these guys. And so they had these huge books, like thousands of pages. And Dharmarakshita was teaching it to Atisha. So Atisha was getting fed Abhidharma. And Abhidharma teaching on emptiness is very strange and not very sophisticated. And it doesn't help you a lot. It's extremely similar to modern science. So the Abhidharma system of understanding reality and modern science are almost exactly the same. So that was 2,000 years ago. And so he was getting fed this long, slow book of Abhidharma. And his teacher, Dharmarakshita, went to town, and there was a guy dying. There was a man dying in his home, and there was a doctor taking care of him, and the doctor, you know, announced that the only way this guy is going to survive is if somebody cuts a piece of human flesh off their body and feeds it to him. Otherwise he'll die, you know. So Dharmarakshita is like, okay, I can do that. and he took a knife and he cut a big piece of steak off his leg, off his thigh here. It made a terrible wound, and they fed the meat to the guy, and he got better almost right away, and everybody was amazed, and then Dharmarakshita had to go to bed because he couldn't stand anymore, and he went into a dream, and Maitreya came to him and said, "Hey, something happened to your leg," and Dharmarakshita just like, "Oh yeah, I had to offer some of my meat to somebody," and Maitreya puts his hand on his thigh and cured him in the dream. And then Dharmarakshita woke up, and he looked, and his leg was all fixed, and then suddenly he said, "Why am I wasting time on Abhidharma? I can't do emptiness that way." And because of the blessing of Maitreya, he actually became a mind-only. He started to follow the mind-only school, which is like really good. It's not the ultimate, but it's really good. And so Dharmarakshita studied mind-only. He became a mind-only master, and he taught that to Atisha, and like that. And he said it was the blessing of Maitreya that caused him to change his school to that. So that was the background of Atisha. Later, Atisha got teachings on Nagarjuna and the 6 books of Nagarjuna. Sometimes they say 5 books, and he became a great master of emptiness also. Then there was kings in Tibet. They wanted to bring Buddhism to Tibet. There had been some Buddhism came to Tibet with individual yogis like a few hundred years before. So Buddhism came to China like 700 years before Tibet. But in Tibet, it was around the time of Atisha that the main teachings reached Tibet. And Atisha was planning to he was asked to come to Tibet and teach by the king. And the king was trying to fundraise, as I can appreciate, to get Atisha to Tibet. And then he was fundraising in a neighboring kingdom. And that king imprisoned him and said he would kill him unless his people gave him gold. And there was a big fight, and the king actually died in prison. And then his nephew decided to try to invite Atisha to Tibet. And they sent, it's a long story, but they sent a team to India to try to convince the abbot of Vikramashila to release Atisha. And eventually they made a deal that Atisha would stay for 3 years in Tibet, and he would teach for 3 years. Atisha was already 57 years old. In those days, the average age was 40, 45. You survived to 40 or 45. He was already like 12 years over maximum age. And nowadays, he'd be 90 or something. And so it was difficult for him to travel, but he agreed to go. And he went to Tibet, and they met a strange man on the way, single man traveling, and they said, he said, "Oh, you guys look like you're going somewhere important, you look like you're on a mission, and they said, "Yeah, we're trying to bring Buddhism to a new country. This country doesn't even have an alphabet, okay? This is a country of yak herders and warriors, they don't have books, they don't have writing, and he says, "Well, that's gonna be hard. I'll teach you some prayers." And he taught them some prayers to say about compassion. And there's a tradition that was Dromtenje. So Dromtenje was the first Tibetan to receive teachings from Atisha. And by the way, I put all these stories in the introduction, okay? It took me a long time, and I had to read a lot of ancient books, and it was fun. But Dromtenje, he was born in Tibet, central Tibet, around 1000 AD. And it's interesting because normally in the stories of the great teachers, they don't tell you any information. They just tell you he was the most wonderful and the greatest, and and they go on like that for 100 pages, and then there's no information. And there's a few historians who will tell you the truth, So I found one, and he said Dromtenje was born, his parents were Bunbo. Bunbo means shamans. They were both shamans. They were not Buddhist. So at that time in Tibet, most people were shaman, and they worshipped the sky, Tengri, and it's a long story, Bumbo. And so we know from their personal names that they weren't Buddhist, they were shaman. And they had this boy. And then, I don't know, after, like, when he was 13, his father took a second wife, which was common in Tibet at that time, or two brothers would share the same wife. And so he didn't get along with his stepmother, which is very rare. And he moved out, which is also very rare. And he went off and he met some lama, and the lama, he asked the lama to teach him. And because he heard the lama was going to go to India and study there, so he thought, I'll attach myself to this lama and maybe he'll take me to India with him, So he did, and the lama said, look, you're too young for me to take you traveling, because people will say I stole you from your parents or something. I guess 15 was the driving age or something. He said, wait another year or two and you can travel with me. And then he went to Nepal. He met some Indian masters. He did a, what do you call it, clairvoyance contest? Who can read the other person's mind? And the Tibetan Lama won. And then he said, why waste my time in India? I think I'll go back to Tibet. And he went back to Tibet, and he took Dromtenje. Drom, by the way, Drom is a place in Tibet. Tun means teacher from wherever. So when you say Tun at the end of a person's name, it means Tumba, which means teacher. So you could call Arizotun would be the teacher from Arizona or something like that. So he's Dromtun. His monk's name is Gyalwe Jungne, which means the source of victorious Buddhas. Okay? And so anyway, the teacher told him, look, I have to go to East Tibet, which is called Kham, and you can travel with me. It's 1,000 miles, on horseback, and you can come with me, but you have to do whatever I say, or else I don't need the trouble, which I also appreciate. And so he's like, Dromtenje's like, I promise, whatever you need, I'll do, And so he got stuck with watching the horses all night. What do you call it? Horse guard? And in Tibet at the time, that involved picking thorn bushes like cactuses with your hands and setting them around the cattle so they couldn't get out and people couldn't get in. So he had to be pulling cactuses up with his bare hands, all evening, and then guarding and then during the day, his teacher made him crush barley powder because of sampa. They need to eat it in their breakfast, right? And my lama did the same thing to me. And I know what it's like. And you take there's a thing called a ding. It's a heavy piece of metal pipe, this thick, with a bottom. And then they give you a heavy metal rod. And you drop a few barley corns in there and you smash them. And then you take them out and you smash more. And it takes like 4 or 5 hours. And my teacher insisted it was the only way that samba would taste good, if you did it by hand. So I went through that. I did many hours crushing barley. I said, let's use a machine. He's like, no, it puts oil in the barley. It ruins the taste. So apparently Dromten Jay's teacher said the same thing. And so he was crushing barley during the day. He was watching horses at night. He didn't get any study. He was frustrated. But then, people asked him later, did you feel upset at the Lama? And he said, well, actually, nah, I thought it was an honor to serve my teacher, And so he didn't complain. Finally, some of his teacher's friends said, why are you wasting his time? He could be a great geshe. He could be studying, Why are you wasting his time guarding horses and smashing barley? So they were passing a lot of monasteries, and he had been teaching him, and he said, okay, sometimes you can go in the monasteries and debate with the monks. And this way, Dromten Jay became a great debater. In the meantime, Atisha is trying to get over the mountains in Nepal into Tibet, and Tara comes to him. By the way, the two ladies were Tara and Vajrayogini in the sky. And Tara comes to him and says, keep your eye out for the upasika. Upasika means a layperson with lifetime vows. So Dromten Jay is famous. He was the first great Tibetan Buddhist, but he never became a monk. He was a layperson. And he never went higher than taking his 5 vows or 8 vows. So he kept those vows his whole life. So in Sanskrit it's called upasaka or upasika. And Tara told Atisha, keep your eyes out for the upasika, because he's going to help you in Tibet, And so Atisha entered Tibet through Nepal, which is West Tibet, at a province called Ngari, and it's the far western side of Tibet. Dromten Jay was smashing barley and picking thorns in the east, 1,000 miles away. And then one day, and he was learning to debate, and then one day he decided he would like to learn Sanskrit, because if he ever met an Indian teacher, he could talk to him. So he found a teacher called Dai Serma, which means thorn of Sanskrit. It means he was a tough teacher, like nail, and he taught him Sanskrit. And then Dromten Jay asked his Sanskrit teacher, are there still any great teachers left in India? And he says, well, there's Naropa, who could teach you Vajrayogini, but he's getting really old. He may have passed away already. And then Shantipa, who's similar. And then there's a new young guy named Atisha, and he's pretty good. And when Dromten Jay heard the name Atisha, his heart starts going crazy, and he's like, oh, that's my teacher, I gotta meet him, And then he heard that Atisha had climbed over Nepal and entered Nari, West Tibet, and he asked his teacher, and he was afraid because he thought the teacher might be jealous. We have a word for that in Tibetan, like professional jealousy, like there's a word for that. And so he said, would you mind if I've served you for 13 years. Could I just go meet this other teacher? Because my heart beats fast whenever I think about him. And he says, yeah, go for it, you know. And here's a horse. And he says, well, the horse is all loaded with boxes. And he says, yeah, I got it ready for you. What's in the boxes? Scriptures. Have a nice time. You know, read them on your way. You know. And so he took off to West Tibet, Dromtonje, riding as fast as he could. And there's a beautiful story that he stopped in a place called, he stopped in an empty place, kind of like Diamond Mountain. And there was a manor house, like a large house, fancy mud house, right? And there was a lot of partying going on inside the house. And he's thirsty and he's tired and he needs a place to sleep and maybe some food or something. And he says, what's going on? You know, and they say, well, that's a guy named Kabir. Kabir is Kabir Jr. and Kabir Sr. are the two owners of this area. They're the big ranchers. They're like, what's this rancher's name next door? Huh? The Clumps. They're like the Clumps, okay? May you never meet the Clumps. I met them once. They had all these guns, you know. I'm like, what's the guns for? And they said, we shoot rattlesnakes. I'm like, okay, just rattlesnakes, right? And anyway, they're like the Clumps of that area. And they're, by the way, they own the marble quarry. So we're actually getting along with them. And so anyway, he said, they're the big shots around here. He says, I'm really thirsty. I'll take a chance. He walks into the house. Younger Kabir is there, you know, spoiled rich kid. And he's like, where are you from? East Tibet. They talk funny. People from East Tibet, they talk really funny. So everybody else knows where they're from. And they're like, you talk funny, you must be from East Tibet. He's like, yeah. He says, oh, okay. He says, well, if you want something to drink or eat, you're gonna have to prostrate to me, says the younger Kabir, the rich, spoiled rich kid. And Dromtonje says, I don't have a problem with that. What kind of prostration do you want? You know, and the kid said, I want the vomiting fox prostration. You know, and you go down like this, and then you stretch a long way, and then you put your head down, and then you come back, and then it's like a fox vomiting. And I found one on YouTube, and it's just like that. Somebody took a video, I don't know how. You can look it up. But they go, he did the fox vomiting prostration to Kabir Jr. And then they sat down and they start having refreshments. And then after a while, Kabir says, you wouldn't be that Dromtonje, would you? From East Tibet. He's famous already for debating the monks in the monastery and beating them. And Dromtonje is like, yeah, that's me. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was Dromtonje, you know. And he takes his seat, and he gives it to Dromtonje, and I'm so sorry about the prostration thing. And Dromtonje says, don't worry about it. Like, he's a very chill guy. And he's like, don't worry about it, it's okay. And they start talking, and Kabir says, by the way, I'm really rich, and I'm going to build another large house here as a temple, and I need a temple keeper. And would you be interested? You know? And Dromtonje is like, first of all, by the way, Dromtonje's got this mission. He can see what Atisha is going to do in Tibet. He can see what's going to happen. And he's already thinking of how to fundraise, right? And he's like, well, you know, if it was a big temple, I might be interested, you know. And the guy says, well, I'll make it pretty big. He says, no, I mean like a castle. And Kabir's like, okay, I could do a castle. And he says, okay, you build a castle, and on my way back, I'll stop and I'll see if it's big enough, I'll stay, you know. And on the way back, 17 years later, he's got this big castle, and that was Radrang Monastery. That became Radrang Monastery. That became Dromtenje's. That became the first great Tibetan monastery. And Atisha and Dromtenje taught there. And that's where the Lamrim was first taught. And that's where Lojong was first taught. And that's where Tsongkhapa had the vision to write the Lamrim Chimo. And if you know the source of all my good, that's where he spoke those words. So Radrang is a very important place. And they built it just for Atisha to teach. You see? Anyway, then he Dromtenje heads off to the west. Kabir gives him a new fresh horse, like a really beautiful horse, and as a gift, and he's galloping, and he runs into a war. And there were lots of local wars going on. There's a joke in Tibetan. There's a somebody's having a major war. I think 3 people died. Anyway, so he couldn't get to West Tibet on the road. It's called the North Road, Changlam. And he had to go through the forest, and he got lost in the forest. And then he found a deer. He ran into a deer, you know. And I was doing retreat in Flagstaff many years ago, like 25 years ago, and a deer, I met a deer in the forest, and we just like ran into each other, and I thought, I'll sing the mandala offering to him and see what happens. And he just stayed there, and he was like, wow, you know. And so he met this deer, and the deer is like, you know. So he followed the deer a long, long way, and he found the house where Atisha was staying. And they say that some people say the deer was Tara, and then other people say it was Pehar. Pehar is a protector deity, not the protector deity, okay, who helped Padmasambhava 200 or 300 years before that. And they founded a monastery called Samye, which is very important for Atisha and Dromtenje. So anyway, this deer took him to Atisha's house, and he went in the house, and he said, you know, he's all dirty and crazy and sweaty, and he says, where's Atisha? And they say, he's been waiting for you. Tara told him you're on the way, and you were supposed to be here this afternoon. Tara said you would be here this afternoon, you know, and then you didn't show up, so Atisha went to do prayers at somebody's house, you know, and just relax and have something to drink, and, you know, he'll come back. He's just doing prayers at somebody's house. And Dromtenje is like, are you crazy? You know, what if I die in the next 10 minutes, you know? I'm gonna go find him, you know. And he's like runs out of the house, and he's running down the street, and he runs into Atisha, because Atisha's by like 57, you know, he's old, and he can't walk very fast. And he starts prostrating to him crazy, and Atisha blesses him, and then they go to the house of the sponsor, and Atisha says, this is the guy that was supposed to be here earlier. And I told you to make an extra meal for him. And the sponsor said, yeah, I remember, I got it already, you know. I got a big hunk of Tibetan bread and a big ball of butter, you know. So Atisha gives the bread and butter to Dromtenje. And then they do the prayers, and then the Dromtenje decides to eat the bread and save the butter because he has an idea. And he goes back, they go back to the house, and Atisha's been keeping a tantric vase near his pillow for 3 days, because Tara said the guy will be here in 3 days, the Upasika, right? And so, Atisha gives him tantric initiation immediately. And then Dromtenje burns the butter. What do you call it? Clarifies the butter, makes ghee, and offers a butter lamp to his teacher. And he did that every night for the rest of his life. He offered a butter lamp at the pillow of his teacher. And then they started, and Dromtenje's like, so you're going to teach the Tibetans Buddhism, right? And Atisha's like, yeah. And Dromtenje's like, well, they don't know anything. And they're really rough people. And, it's not going to be easy. Do you have something kind of easy for them? And Atisha says, yeah, the 2 angels told me. Who? The 2 angels said Semjong. I got Semjong for you guys. Let's call it Lojong. Okay, Lo and Sem are the same thing. So he said, let's call it Lojong. I brought you a Lojong. And so Lojong is like first introductory Buddhism. And if you're gonna teach a whole country of crazy people, like Americans, then you might want to start with Lojong. And my teacher used to start with Lojong. And the first thing he taught me was Lojong. And there's a famous Lojong in 8 verses. He taught it to me. That was the first teaching he ever gave me. They asked me here on next Saturday. Is it Saturday? We're going to have a 20th anniversary? Or of what? Daimon. And they said, will you teach something? And I said, let's do the Lojong. The 8 verses, okay? Lojong Sigima, which is, the teacher is called Dorje Senge, which means diamond lion. And it's a very, very profound Lojong because it covers both Semjongs. Okay, Semjong. And it covers both aspects of Lojong. So, by the way, so Atisha started with Lojong. And he didn't do the 8 verses, he did the crown of knives, which is what this is, okay? This is the crown of knives. The actual Lojong is 100 verses, roughly. The commentary is, 800 pages, okay? And so he taught that one. His teacher, Dharma Rakshita, gave him that Lojong. He taught him that Lojong, which was, at the time, it's called Asiddhara Chakra. So Asi means steel sword. Dhara means holding a steel sword. And chakra means a crown or a wheel. So Asiddhara Chakra is the ancient name for a weapon. And Stanley found me the Chinese version, which is called Blood Dripper. It's like a ninja thing. What do you call it? Say again. Shedi? Sheditza. Anyway, it's the same thing. You throw it like this and it spins. It has blades on the outside like a helicopter, and it has blades on the inside. And it cuts the person both ways, okay? And that's called the crown of knives. Sometimes it comes down on your head, and that's what happened to me and John Brady. No, I'm just kidding. We got it to go back up quickly. it'll cut your head from the inside, and then it cuts you from the outside also. So it's the name of this lojong is the crown of knives, and the idea is that your karma comes back to you like a wheel of knives. Okay, so whatever you do to other people comes back to you like a crown of knives, There's a many beautiful stories in here. One cool one is the guy who makes a sword on his anvil, a blacksmith who makes a sword, fancy sword for a special rich guy, and then carries it, he finishes it, and he carries it to the rich guy, and he trips on the way, and he stabs himself through the heart. And they say that's the lojong. Got it? Like you intend to hurt somebody, and you get all ready to hurt somebody, and maybe you hurt somebody, but then it comes back and it hurts you. The other example is in this book is poison arrow. When this guy is going to a battle, and he coats the arrows with poison, and then in the middle of the battle he's really going fast, and he cuts himself and he dies in the middle of the battle. And they say that our life is like that. Every time we want to hurt somebody, every time we get ready to hurt somebody, it backfires on us. And that's the idea of the wheel of knives, or the crown of knives. The ancient story where we found the Sanskrit is the story of Maitri in the Karma Vibhanga, which this is a sutra by Lord Buddha 1500 years before Atisha. And it's a story about a young man who goes to sea. You know the story. And his mother asks him not to go, and he insists on going. And then finally, he's on his way out to go to sea. His mother's holding onto his leg, and he bumps his mother's head. And then he goes to sea. At sea, the ship sinks. Everyone dies except for the young boy. And there's a long story, but the karma of hurting your parent is that he's got the wheel of knives on his head. Later, the wheel of knives comes to his head. But Maitri, just as the wheel is descending onto his head, he makes a prayer that he should take the pain of the knives, and it should cause his parents to never have any pain. See what I mean? He said, and by the way, I'll take the pain of all living beings on myself. And he welcomes the crown of knives. Therefore, the crown cannot it stops in midair, and it won't come down. And so the translator was Seiji, and at the time he was like 5 years into the book, and he had his son, and he named his son Maitri in honor of the boy in the story. Okay, so, and back in Indonesia around the time of Atisha, or a little bit earlier, they were building a pyramid, a grand pyramid called Borobudur. And it's got like, I think it has 1,200 panels, the size of this wall. And they are carved. Famous Buddhist stories are carved into the panels. And there's a carving of the story of Maitri. But unfortunately, it's on the first level of the pyramid. And it's backwards. Okay, like you walk around the pyramid, circumambulate clockwise, and the panels run backwards. Something like that, okay? And they only make sense if you're walking around the pyramid in a certain direction, okay? So anyway, we found a drawing of the crown of knives there. And by the way, those particular carvings were covered up about 100 years ago. the pyramid was collapsing. And so they bulldozed earth. They buried the first level of the pyramid, which happens to be the story of Maitri. But some crazy Indian photographer took pictures of it first. So we have the pictures. And we drew the crown of knives, and you can see it in the book. But the idea is of this Lojong, why he said Lojong, Sem Jong, is that this practice of Lojong has two levels, okay? The practice has two levels. And we've been talking about it in the Lamrim. By the way, Lamrim, so you take a new student or you take a new country and you teach them Lojong first. So Atisha's teacher gave him this Lojong and said, teach that to Tibetans first. And when they calm down a little bit, you can teach them Lamrim. Okay, start with Lojong. Teach them Lojong for about a year. And that's what my teacher did when he got to the crazy land called America. And he taught Lojong for about a year. And then second level, you teach Lamrim. When people are ready in a new country or something, first you do Lojong, because it's short and it's complete. And then you teach Lamrim, which is long and complete. Okay. And if the people are serious, then you teach them the five great books. Okay, the 5 great books of philosophy. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 30, 40 years. Okay, so do Lojong, then Lamrim for the busy people who have phones and stuff, and and then the serious people, we do the classics, the 5 great books, which is the Geshe course. Okay, and it takes like 20 years, 25 years, and so that's what we're doing in the translation classes. And if you want to go deeper, but the topic of all 3 is Lojong, Semjong. First one means try to feel the intention to treat other people as well as you treat yourself. Try to treat other people with the same love that you treat yourself. Okay, try to reach a state where you take care of other people with the same interest and the same passion that you take care of yourself. Okay, that's the first Lojong, or Semjong means try to treat other people with the same kind of interest that you take care of yourself. Okay, and by the way, we all take care of ourselves better than we take care of other people. And that's just human nature. If you're on this planet right now and you're not Vajrayogini in disguise, which you may be, I don't know, because you're disguised, but everyone else of us, me, we take care of ourselves better than we take care of other people. And that's just human nature. And it's why we're here, because this is kind of like the back of the class. This planet is the back of the class. But when am I supposed to shut up, you guys? 5 more minutes? Something? I gotta time this right. Tim? Serious? Wow, okay. Oh. 5, 10 minutes more? So half an hour more. Oh, how long is the class? Huh? Okay. It's another world. Okay, good. So the first Semjong means I'm going to turn on. I have a phone. No, I got a phone somewhere. Hang on. I don't trust Dime Mountain Time. People are in another world. Okay, 7:15, am I right? Okay, right. So the first lojong, first semjong, means practice the state of mind where you try to take care of other people with the same passion that you take care of yourself. Try to equal it out. And that is called deceptive lojong or first level lojong. And there's two practices that help you reach that level of lojong. Okay, there's two famous practices, and they've come from Shantideva. They come from 1,300 years ago, 300 years before Atisha. Okay, and Atisha was trained in Shantideva, so he knew about it. And Shantideva's approach is two parts. It's called Dakshen Nyamje, right? Say Dakshen Nyamje. Dak means me, Shen means other people, and then Nyamje, people call it exchanging self and others. It's not correct. Okay, it's a big boo-boo. So it's actually two different practices, Nyam and Je. Okay, Dakshen, me and other people, Nyam, Je. So Nyam Dang Je. First Nyam, then Je. Not Nyam Je. Okay, got it? So here's what the Nyam is. There's basically, Nyam means equal. Nyam means equal. For example, there's a famous Nyambani which is emptiness. Equality of all people and things is their emptiness. There's nothing in the universe which is not coming from your seeds. There's nothing in the universe which is not coming from your seeds. Nyampa. All things are equal. Okay, why? Everything you ever see and everyone you ever meet is coming from your seeds, you know. And I don't know, this week I was having an operation on my hand, operation number 2, and people are chasing me around town. I need a meeting. You know, I'm like, I'm sorry, they're cutting up my hand, you know. I mean, you could come in the room, but I might not be, you know, conscious. And and they're like, no. Then so, you know, I'm like, okay, what do you need? I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble with my wife or my husband, you know. I just say, think about the pen. Think about the pen. They're like, no, but I need more. And I'm like, I don't have anything else. That's all I got, you know. You know, really. And that should be enough, you know. If someone irritates, you know, nyam, one meaning of nyam is everything in the universe is equal. It's all coming from you, okay? People around you, even your husband, is coming from you, okay? If you don't like something, fix it in you, because it's all coming from you. Then you don't have to worry about anybody else. And you don't have to tell Geshe about anybody else. Because I don't care. Because I know the problem and I know how to fix it. Just fix your seeds, you know. I don't care about this other thing. I don't have anything else to say. You know, I can stretch it out as long as I can. Anyway, all things are equal, nyamba, okay? All things are coming from you. Even the person who's giving you the most trouble in your life is coming from you. And people beg me and yell at me and call me over and over and say, I need more. And I say, I don't have more, you know. Just fix it, you know. It's coming from you. You fix it, you know. I can't fix it. You have to fix it. And there's nothing that's not coming from you. So you have total control over the situation. You just, if your wife or husband's an asshole, stop being an asshole. Okay? By the way, if my wife was here, I wouldn't say that. So anyway, that's the truth. Anyway, that's one kind of equality. But the one here is that everyone has an equal right to be happy. That's nyam. When you say dak shen nyam je, nyam means every living creature in the universe has an equal right to be happy. And I don't have more right than you to be happy, and you don't have more right to me than me to be happy. We all have equal right. Everyone has an equal right to be happy. Okay, that's nyam. And then you just have to keep thinking about it, you know. And we used it, by the way, in DCI for training business managers. Like all the people on your work team that you're trying to get to work for you, they have an equal right to success as you do. Okay, you're the boss, you want them to work well, but they have the same right as you. They have the same right. They also want to be successful. So nyamba means everyone has an equal right to be happy. No person in the world has more right to be happy than another person. And it sounds obvious, right? But it's hard to do it, right? It's hard to act on it, okay? Then J is very tricky, you know. They say exchange self and others. It's not that easy, okay? You're supposed to sit in Baron's place, and I'm supposed to switch with you. You're supposed to be in my body. I go into your body. I get in your body. I look through your eyes at me. And then I try to imagine how Baron's feeling about Geshe-la, you know, which Geshe-la usually doesn't worry about. And then suddenly Geshe-la is like, whoa. So that's what Geshe-la looks like. Okay, got it? So the J part means, it doesn't mean, oh, your happiness is as important as mine, let's exchange. It doesn't mean that. It means I put myself in your body and I look back at Geshe Michael and see how is he acting, how is he treating people, you know? So I try to imagine how you feel yourself treated by Geshe Michael. How do you feel Geshe Michael's treating you? It's J, it's the J. So Nyam means you have an equal right to happiness. J means I put myself in your body and look at Geshe Michael, and then I see how it feels to have how Geshe Michael treats you. So I think about how Geshe Michael's treating me, which is you. Got it? And then that helps you with the first Semjong. That's the first Semjong. I don't know if it was Tara or Vajrayogini. I suspect it was Tara. She said Semjong the other day. Semjong. Okay, so the first Semjong is those two practices: Dak, Shen, Nyam, Je. Okay, that's the first Semjong. And by the time you finish the first Semjong, you're supposed to have an overwhelming desire to help people out of trouble. Okay, you're supposed to have an overwhelming desire to help people get out of trouble. Okay, that's the first Semjong. Now, you got to read this someday. A lot of Lojongs were kept secret, and that fascinates me. You know, this is like first grade Buddhism. You know, kindergarten Buddhism. You know, and some of these Lojongs were kept secret for 800 years. You know, they were passed down secretly. If you guys, you YSI guys, if you know Virupa, is one of the great Mahasiddhas, one of the 80 great yoga practitioners of ancient India, is Virupa. And he's, by the way, Viv means, in this case, it means defective. And Rupa means his personal appearance, Rupa. And Virupa means Mr. Ugly. And he's like one of the most famous yogis of all time, you know. So who are you, Geshe-la, to call him Mr. Ugly? Hey, Somebody else named him, not me. It's Virupa. And he's called deformed because he had a third eye. Okay, and he looked weird. Okay, got it? People just met him and said, "You look weird." You know, he's like, blink, blink. Okay. And that's Virupa. And there's a tradition that I found in my research that says some of the Lojong started with him. That's 300 years before Atisha, you know. Then I'm like, first of all, I didn't believe it. And then I went and checked all the books by Virupa. And there is a Lojong. It's not called a Lojong, but the main topic is Semjong, Semjong, which makes it a Lojong, you know. And I'm like, wow, that's unbelievable. So why did they keep it secret for 300 years up to Atisha? And the Lojong Dunbudunma, which the Mexico teachers taught partly in Guadalajara, that was kept secret another couple hundred years, 500 years, you know. Why keep the Lojong secret? By the way, it took 12 years for Atisha to learn a Lojong that you can recite in 47 seconds. I tried. Like that, I timed it, 47 seconds. He spent 12 years learning a 47-second prayer. You know, what's there that you can spend 12 years on, you know? And why do you keep it secret? That's the second Semjong. Yeah, that's the second Semjong. Okay, the second Semjong means practice the perception of emptiness, because otherwise you can't help other people. Okay, practice the perception of emptiness. Semjong, Semjong, because that's the only way you can carry out bodhicitta. That's the only way you can become a Buddha to help other people, is the second Semjong. And that's where the peacock comes from, okay? So there's a very, very famous, the second Lojong that Atisha was taught is called Maja Dukjom. Say Maja Dukjom. How the peacocks destroy poison. And you know the story that supposedly peacocks can eat poison plants. I'm thinking poison ivy. Have you ever had poison ivy? It's wonderful. You touch the plant on your skin. I mean, we don't have it in Arizona, which is, I mean, in this part of Arizona, because nothing grows here anyway. But I've had it for 3-4 months. It's in New Jersey, and it's this red thing, and they love to eat it. The peacocks love to eat it, you know, and they eat the poison ivy, and it makes them beautiful. It gives them these beautiful colors, you know. And there's this whole idea that we're going to talk about all week, that peacocks, we should be like a peacock, which means we should look for trouble. Okay, we should look for trouble. If you're going to be a professional Buddhist, you should look for trouble, you know. And every time you see a bad situation or a problem, you should peacock it. You know, you should jump in. And most people, when they see a problem, they kind of, well, they don't make it obvious, you know. They just say, "Oh, that's interesting," and you know, and they don't. Usually, they're too busy. There was an interesting study. They took people who were applying to seminary, applying to become a priest, and they gave them an interview date and time. And then they faked a car accident in front of the interview building. and most of them just ignored the person bleeding and didn't want to be late for their religious interview. And that's what we do, like we don't, we see trouble and we just avoid it. We go the other way. And a peacock, a bodhisattva, is supposed to seek out problems and eat them. And they get sustenance, vitamins. Problems are vitamins for bodhisattvas. Somebody says, Geshe, we're having a fundraising problem. Then, what I really want to do at that moment is take a nap. And they're like, Geshe, we need to raise more money, And I'm like, all right, peacock time. And I try to jump in and help out. You know what I mean? Like that. So that's peacock. But I believe you cannot do it unless you understand emptiness. Okay? I believe that it would be dangerous to run around eating poison if you don't understand emptiness. Okay? If you keep jumping into people's problems and making them yours, you will die. Like the crow. There's a famous story of the crow. He saw the peacock eating poison. He says, I want to have those feathers, And then the crow eats the poison and they die. I think the reason they kept it secret was that, and they did not encourage people to jump into all the problems they see, is that they would have a breakdown, or they would just like get overwhelmed and they would freak out, they'd end up in the crazy house, If you actually jumped into every possible problem you saw to help, you would go crazy. And unless you understood emptiness, which means you understand that the problem is coming from you. Okay? Then you can peacock. Got it? Like, then it's your problem. It's not like you're trying to help out somebody else, Who made the problem? Oh, Geshe, pens come from people, but not problems. Problems come from their own side. And then if you're still at that level of blaming other people for their problems, like I just did at the beginning of class, if you're still at that level, you can't be a bodhisattva. You'll get overwhelmed, and then you will quit the problem business. You will give up, and you'll never do problems. So I think my extensive research, the printer was like, I can't print it in one volume. I said, how about two? She said, I'll try. Then she said 3. Then she said 4. I said, do I have to pay the same price? No, 4 times. $120. Okay. That's why it was secret for like 800 years, until the students could catch up on the emptiness side. It would be a disaster to encourage them to jump into people's problems, because they would get overwhelmed. Okay? They would believe that they were other people's problems, and they're not. They're your problems. If you perceive a problem, it's coming from you. Then you have the power to fix it. You see what I mean? It would be unfair to send out all these peacocks, crows, to eat up everybody's problems, because you'll have a breakdown, unless you understand where it's coming from. And then you can handle it, and then you can help people, okay? And that's why the 2 ladies said, Semjong, Semjong. The second Semjong is practice the state of mind of emptiness. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to have a Dharma breakdown. By the way, people who have a Dharma breakdown are hopeless. They get really mean. Yeah, I tried to help everybody, get like, all assholes. I get that up. Oh, that was the old days when I was trying to be a Buddhist. Forget that. Okay, got it? Tim, anything? Am I? There's green drink. Oh, so then at what time we have a class? At 8 o'clock, we are going to do, so I used to do 60 translation classes in 1 week. And it takes many hours to prepare each translation class. And so I made a new system where I teach them twice a week for the whole year. And then all of the organizers like YSIA, by the way, why we only have 41 organizations, there's only so many ways you can put 3 letters. We had to stop. YSI, BBC, CIA. So anyway, we decided to, I decided to, wherever I am on Saturday morning and wherever I am on Monday evening, I teach a translation class. And it's an honor to come to the translation class. And it's not a trouble that the organizers should avoid. They should, Tantra says, you will get the right class at the right time. You know, that's Diamond Way. You want, everybody's like, teach me Diamond Way, Geshe. I'm like, I am. It's secret. Okay? So you'll get hit with some class that's totally not what you came here for. And it is what you came here for. Okay? So listen carefully in the class and you'll find something that's meant for you. Okay? So today's class this morning is the Vinaya class. With Xiaoping. She's been translating Vinaya scriptures for 8 years now. And she finished a basic one, and now she's on the greatest one, which will take 40 years or something. And that's why we choose them young. So it's a very interesting class, I have to say. So we'll be doing Vinaya class. Cool? So take a nice pee-pee break and green drink break, and we'll see you back here at 8 o'clock, Tim, am I right? Anything else, announcements? Nope? Okay, bye. Thank you. Okay. Oh, you can come up and play with these, okay? You can take it and read it. Don't take it out of the temple, okay? But you can sit with it. By the way, there's a way to tell your future. You just open one page and you read a sentence. If it says you're going to wash dishes all week, that's a prediction.
Everyone.